So who am I speaking with?
Stephen Bai. I'm the CTO at Sprint.
And Stephen, I kept hearing from you and your colleague about how certain applications just aren't made well and they make too many calls to the network and it kind of abuses the network inappropriately. So I want to know what would be, as a developer, a good way to work with Sprint?
Yeah, so we actually have an annual developers conference that, and the next one is actually in November, the first week of November in Santa Clara. It's actually our 11th conference, and we're going to be focusing on a number of themes, but one of them is really to talk to the developer community and make them aware of sort of what's going on and what we see in terms of network characteristics and performance that are just not necessarily visible to them in terms of the applications and what's happening in terms of the connection rate and the signaling on the network, as well as even sort of the background level of traffic. And so what we see is some challenges with that, but what we want to be is completely transparent about where we see those challenges. And in fact, even some of the things that we're doing now is when we analyze applications and we look at sort of what's going on with the data, we actually go back to the developers or the companies that are bringing these apps and sort of make them aware of what's going on there, but also suggest to them, hey, there's things here that you might want to adjust that improve really the end-to-end experience for the customer, but also cut down on sort of the inefficiency of the delivery of that content or even the connection rate in the network as well.
So actually give me some specifics, like what are you seeing that as a developer I can't see?
I would say that what we are seeing, and I think the developers can see this, it may not be in the focus right now, but I think one of the concerns there's two real concerns we have. One is the number of persistent connections and the persistency of those connections that are running in the background and the frequency of those connections. And so what we see is a lot of applications keep up that persistent connection for a long duration and maybe even multiple connections. And that puts a lot of burden on us in terms of being able to support that, especially if it's inefficient or ineffective. And so what we found is when we work with certain developers, we can actually cut that down. It actually doesn't have any impact in terms of the customer experience or the use or the working of that application, but it certainly makes it easier for us to be able to support that application more effectively in the network.
And do they, in turn, see their own performance go up?
Absolutely. In fact, I can't say which app it is, but it was one where we had that situation and we talked to them about it. We had a good dialogue. They weren't aware of it at that point. Not to say that other developers aren't aware of it, but this particular instance, it was actually a very positive experience for the customer because what happened was the app was working in such a way that it was actually having an impact on the battery consumption of the device, and the usability of that device was suffering because this application was running persistently in a certain way in the background. And so what ended up happening was, we made those changes, they made those changes, and the customer experience, even for just the general usage on the device, was dramatically better, which is in both of our interests to do that.
And lastly, besides number of connections, which seems obvious, are there any other sort of things that, or maybe classic problems developers are making that, if they just knew this, they'd make their app a lot better?
One of the things that we're certainly encouraging them to do is push the updates over Wi-Fi rather than over the macro cellular network. And so, encouraging their customers when they connect with Wi-Fi to actually begin to sort of use that as the update mechanism rather than pushing that over the air. I mean, that's a classic one. And just the frequency of those updates can drive up consumption. For us as an unlimited provider, it's really not as big an issue because we have unlimited data plans, but it does, depending on sort of the application, how frequently it's updating, it's probably, I would say, more efficient perhaps to do it over Wi-Fi and time of day and sort of even prompting the customer on as to when to how use that capability.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Stephen.
Thank you.